I'm going to share my screen with you all. Although we were doing online learning, I am glad we were able to finish our syllabus with a very good speed. Uh, I the only concern that I have for this course is that I could not make it more interactive and more participatory as I usually do. Usually my classes are very interactive and participatory in the sense that students actually take part in different activities. And I also believe in activity-based learning. However, this semester has been particularly different for me. Um I had classes in the mornings that are back to back, and I prefer not to have a class which is 40, which is more than 40 minutes longer, because then I usually record my sessions, and the rendering of the video takes time, and then uploading, and then I have to prepare my next class right after that. So that potentially leaves very little time for uh, usually activities. And in online teaching, doing activities overall has been a difficult idea for all instructors, I believe. Right now I'm showing you the course outline that I shared with you all in the beginning of the semester. A copy of this document is already available on Moodle. I told you in the beginning that my main mode of instruction will be on Moodle. My notes, my teaching material was coming to you on Moodle in person. I taught the classes in the beginning of the semester for a couple of weeks, maybe in person, and then Zoom if needed. Right now we need Zoom only. So we are confined to Zoom only. All right, here is the syllabus. So we spent first 2 weeks in the discussion of why we study communication models, what are basic communication models, types of communication models. Then these were some models that we discussed in our fourth week: dance model, governance model, two-step flow model, uh, diffusion of innovation model. Then we discussed stimulus response model, if you remember, and then some further two-step flow model. Diffusion of innovation model again came afterwards. We discussed dependency model of mass media. And then we switched to audience center model that included uses and gratifications model. I haven't discussed encoding, decoding model.
Excuse me, ma'am.
GG, sure.
Ma'am, a friend of mine, Amina, is waiting in the lobby. Please add her.
I just allowed her to enter. After that, we discussed uses and gratifications model. I was saying that, and I did not discuss encoding, decoding model on purpose because personally I believe that this model is a bit difficult, technical to understand. I was waiting that I may uh, go over this model if during the semester we are back to campus. However, I do not know if that will happen. That may happen in near future. I yet have to decide. So until thus far, only encoding decoding model is the only content which is left. We have already discussed gatekeeping and Galtung and Roots gatekeeping. Today we will discuss propaganda model very briefly, and after that you can see we are left with some really brief sort of contents that includes global communication models, international flow of communication model, and some models related to just a model that is related to new media technology, and that's it. So you can see that we have pretty much covered our syllabus with a really good speed, and I'm very happy about it. Um, if you ask me to assess, I would say that we have covered at least 80% of our syllabus for this course. Only 20% content is left, which is mostly related to communication theories on international communication. That is something we will be discussing in the upcoming weeks. Other than that, we have discussed pretty much everything. We have covered pretty much everything in our syllabus. Now, let me tell you another thing. Maybe you all know that this course, MCOM 310, is a prerequisite of other higher level courses in mass comm. Does anyone know that?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. MCOM 310 is actually a prerequisite of MCOM 409, which is a core course in mass communication. And MCOM 409, the title of this course is Theories of Mass Communication. That course is a higher level course, as you can see its code as well. It is 400 level course, and that is the course where you learn, study, and discuss mass communication theories in detail. This course, MCOM 310, actually prepares you for that higher level course. Now, MCOM 310, the purpose here is to familiarize students with some basic theories of mass communication. Here, I am only familiarizing you. You are developing a basic understanding. In MCOM 409, you will be studying theories in much more detail. Not only that, you will be studying some of the theories again that you have already studied here. So for example, agenda setting theory, you did study this theory in this course. However, in MCOM 409, you will be studying this model in great details. Uses and gratifications, you will go over that again. You will again discuss many models related to effects studies. You may go over again a two-step flow model. So many of these models and many of the theories that you have learned in this course, you will be studying them and you will be learning them at great length in your course MCOM 409. All right, this was a brief discussion about the progress of your course. We have only 1 month left for this semester, one month of reading. Today is the June 1st, right? Oh, sorry, May the 31st. Today is May the 31st, and we have classes for this semester until July 2nd, which means we have just this month left, the month of June left for the semester. And considering the time that we have left for the semester, uh, it's a good thing that we have been covering the syllabus with a very good speed. When we switched to online teaching in the beginning of the semester, my biggest concern was that I wanted to cover the syllabus with a good speed, and I'm glad that I was able to do that. Ji. All right, this is our next model, next topic that we will discuss today. We will not finish it today. However, we will only discuss some basic concepts. We will only discuss some basic intro related to this model, and then we will be discussing it at length in our next class on Wednesday, inshallah. Okay, as you can see on screen, my topic today is a propaganda model of mass media. Let's first discuss the idea of propaganda. What is propaganda? How do you how do you understand this word propaganda?
मैम to influence something,
Gigi, go ahead.
किसी चीज को इन्फ्लुएंस करना, इसकी बहुत ज्यादा न्यूज फ्रीक्वेंसी से कोई बात फैलाना। प्रोपेगेंडा एडवर्टाइज करने के लिए भी हो सकता है, प्रोपेगेंडा जो है पॉलिटिकल इन्फ्लुएंस के लिए भी हो सकता है, प्रोपेगेंडा जो है वो किसी चीज की मार्केटिंग के लिए भी हो सकता है।
Good. Anyone else? I think Hubab wanted to say something. Ji, Hubab.
Ma'am, propaganda is more like an information, but it has like a specific cause, which is like it could be biased or misleading as well.
Shabash. Good job. Anyone else?
मैम
Gigi, go ahead.
मैम अपनी जो सोच है किसी चीज के बारे में, अपना जो पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू है उसको दूसरों पे एक तरह से हावी करना।
May I know your name, please?
मैम अब्दुल्ला।
Abdullah. Ji,
Ma'am,
Gigi, go ahead.
propaganda is basically the dissemination of information or arguments or rumors.
Okay. I think you all are absolutely right, and you all have said one common thing about the definition of propaganda. You all said that propaganda actually means the dissemination of information. Now, what sort of information may be considered propaganda? Let's say if you receive this information that the government has recently begun the vaccination of people who are um, um, 19 plus years of age. Now, is that propaganda? Of course not. So, only saying that the dissemination of information uh, uh, is propaganda. However, the dissemination of a certain kind of information is propaganda. Now, what is that kind? What is that kind? What kind of information can be considered propaganda?
Yes, ma'am. Rumors.
Saleh, as you say, your voice is not clear. Can you say it again?
Ma'am, I'm saying the information with rumors or arguments are also agenda. Sorry, propaganda.
Yes. Maybe the word false here is a little too strong. However, the spread of incorrect information or even the spread of sensational information is also propaganda. Now, let's talk about the word sensational. When I say that talk shows in Pakistan are famous for their sensational content. Now, what's the meaning of sensational? What do I mean here when I say sensationalism? Or I say, well, this particular channel is famous for the spread of sensational news story, or this particular news channel is famous for its sensational content. I am pretty sure you are familiar with this word and you may have heard it many times. So, what is sensationalism?
मैम सनसनी फैलाना, यानी कि बात को बढ़ा चढ़ा कर पेश करना। मिसाल के तौर पर हम YouTube पे थंबनेल्स देखते हैं।
मैम इंटेंस कह सकते हैं या फिर कोई ऐसी न्यूज़ जिसका रिएक्शन में लाइक आप क्यूरियोसिटी क्रिएट कर रहे हो।
Ma'am, yellow journalism is also called sensationalism.
Yes, yellow journalism is sensationalism. Okay,
Like in
all about
sensationalism.
yellow journalism. Let me explain what sensationalism is. Sensationalism means the spread of information at the expense of accuracy. It means that the information, you do not care that the information that you are spreading, whether it is accurate or not. And you are providing information which is sort of sizzling. I'll write the word in the chat box. Some of you may be familiar with this word. Sizzling is the word we normally use in cooking. When you are making a kind of food that requires for example, when you put something in really hot oil, let's say you take some oil in a pan, in a frying pan or in a cooking pan, and you heat it up for a while, it becomes really hot. And just imagine a situation that in that hot oil, if you put anything for frying, onion or cumin seeds or chopped ginger or anything that sizzles, you also hear a sizzling sound. You hear smoke coming out of the pan, and you also hear some noise. Have you ever noticed that? That is sizzling. And the information that kind of creates a sizzling sort of effect is sensational. Uh, to put it simply, a sensational information is a kind of information that comes at the expense of accuracy and that has a sizzling effect. That is called sensational information. And Fatima was absolutely right. Fatima was quite right when she said that uh, yellow journalism is sensational. Yes, all sensational journalism actually is yellow journalism. So propaganda is actually dissemination of sensational information, dissemination of false information, again dissemination of information at the expense of accuracy. However, sometimes when the communicator is boasting about something, communicator is exaggerating about something, that too is considered propaganda. There are different kinds of propaganda. Right now we are not learning uh, uh, different kinds. I'm just telling them to you for some explanation. There is different kinds of propaganda include white propaganda, gray propaganda, and black propaganda. So white propaganda is actually the dissemination of information where you actually receive information which is close to facts. However, gray propaganda is a sort of information which to a greater extent stands neutral. It has some mixing of false information, but that is not potentially harmful. However, black propaganda is the spread of information that is mostly completely harmful, and that leads us the uh, towards the better understanding of the term propaganda. Now, propaganda is actually a word, a term that has developed in negative connotation. By negative connotation, I mean that the word is usually taken in negative meanings. Now, let me explain in just one sentence that what propaganda actually is. I'm explaining the term propaganda in just one sentence. Propaganda is the dissemination of information that may be potentially harmful to a person, to an institution, or to an organization. That is propaganda. Like, yes, this is the dissemination of information. Hubab was absolutely right. Saeed Akhtar was absolutely right. So was Fatima and many other students who were answering what propaganda is. Merely saying that dissemination of information is propaganda may not be the accurate uh, uh, description of the word what propaganda is. Propaganda is the dissemination of information, but what kind of information? An information that may be potentially harmful, again, to a person. To propaganda can be done against anyone, against a person, against an individual, against an institution, against an organization, against a country, against a nation, against an ethnic group of people. Do you understand now? Any question? Any question? Okay. To explain and to give example, to give further example about my description of the word propaganda, I just said that propaganda means the dissemination of information which may be potentially harmful to a person. Let's say I am a communication teacher who teaches at XC College University, and if someone starts disseminating an information about me that says that, well, Farasat Jabi is a kind of teacher who never takes her classes, who never comes to classes, and if she comes, she is mostly late, and she leaves her classes early before the actual class time ends. Now you see, if anyone starts disseminating this information about me, now that is the information that is potentially harmful for me. So that is propaganda. This is not to say that propaganda is based on only lies or false facts. Sometimes there can be truth as well. However, like I said, propaganda is a terminology that has negative connotation. So if someone says, well, this person is doing propaganda against this particular institution, this means that this person is doing something negative about that institution, because the spread of information regarding that institution ultimately is going to be harmful, is ultimately going to damage the reputation of that person. That is why whenever we are talking about the word propaganda, we actually understand it in the meaning of a damage to somebody's reputation. That is the general sense that we take out of the word propaganda. All right. I have already discussed this at length. This is the dictionary definition that I have here. Propaganda is any sort of information, usually any biased information or information that is of political nature that is disseminated to get a job or purpose done. So the person who is engaged in propaganda, they usually have an objective. They want to attain a purpose. If someone is saying something about someone and that information is related to propaganda, of course they want to get something out of it. So this is what it means, that the kind of information that is disseminated to get a job or purpose done. Now this is last thing for today's class, because I am not going to discuss it anymore. Before I leave, I want to ask you this question, and my question is, can media be used as a propaganda tool?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Media is the only thing that
Yes,
is
ma'am.
used for that.
Good. So we all agree that media can be used as a propaganda tool. Who potentially can use media as a propaganda tool? Who?
Politicians.
Politicians.
You said politicians. Anyone else?
Even
Ma'am,
celebrities can
foreign
use.
media.
Foreign media. Good job. International media, when they, especially you may have noticed that Hollywood, in many movies, they talk about Muslims, Mexicans in a typical stereotype way. So that is propaganda. So foreign media can be engaged in propaganda. Government can be engaged in propaganda. Politicians can be engaged in propaganda. Sometimes government agencies, establishment can be engaged in propaganda. And not only that, we are forgetting an important element, journalists themselves can also be engaged in propaganda. I was thinking about an example.
Ma'am?
मैम वो डान न्यूज लीग जो आई थी.
Shabash, ji. The very good example, Dawood. There is this TV network, Gourmet News Network, and the the channel is owned by of course, Gourmet Bakers and Confectioners. They have their chains throughout the city. Not only throughout the city, they have their chains across the province now. And there was a news story that I read a few years ago in newspaper. So the Food Authority, there is this organization, I have forgotten their full name, Food Authority. Like they make sure that the food that restaurants are providing, it follows the standards of hygiene and cleanliness. And they determined that there were a few brands of ice cream that were not following the standards of cleanliness and hygiene. I remember I read this information in newspaper, by the way. Chaman ice cream was one of them, and even Gourmet ice cream was also one of them. And soon after that, Gourmet News Network started propaganda against that government agency. There was this lady, food inspector. Her name was Dr. Aisha, I believe.
Aisha Mumtaz.
Yes.
So she was quite active a few years ago, and she even went for inspection to many famous eateries, and she would visit their kitchens, and she would visit their storage houses. She would see their refrigerators and all that. So they Gourmet News Network then started a propaganda against this government agency. And that happened actually a few years ago, and I read this news story in the newspaper, where you remember there was a time when the Chief Justice of Pakistan was quite active in taking the notice, like he was taking many suo moto actions. So the Chief Justice of Pakistan, he took suo moto of that case as well. And Gourmet News Network was summoned by the Supreme Court to justify their position against the propaganda. So this is where I am ending today's class. We all agree on this question that yes, media can be used as a propaganda tool. Some example, you said that politicians can do propaganda, governments can do propaganda, foreign media can do propaganda, journalists can do propaganda, media channels can do propaganda, reporters can do propaganda. So these are some forums from where propaganda-based information can come our way. We will continue with this lecture in our next class. If you have any question, you can ask me. Otherwise, I'll end today's session.
मैम मैंने ये पूछना था कि हमारी कोई असाइनमेंट वगैरह है?
नहीं बच्चे, you are done, except for the midterm exam. There were 2 exams for
Yes.
you during the semester. One was the first exam that you took before your midterm in April. You already know your score for that. You just took your midterm exam. I will try my optimum best to do the scoring of this, to do the grading of this exam in maximum 2 weeks. And then that's it. And now you will take your final exam lastly. Okay? And I do not know what I will do. I may give you final exam, or I may just give you an assignment. I haven't decided it myself yet. So only the final exam is left. All other assessments are done.
मैम हमारा मिड टर्म इतना अच्छा नहीं हुआ. We were talking about it. So is there any chance that we can have a compensating assignment or anything if we score really bad? या फिर उसका मेकअप सिर्फ हम फाइनल में ही कर सकते हैं अब?
Yes, ma'am, please.
So, Maha, I know I received your email. You missed your first exam as well, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So your case is different, of course. I'll consider your case separately because you actually missed one of the exams. For the rest of the students, I do not know what is the situation right now. I cannot decide until I have graded all midterm exams. Well, if you are saying that for some reason, I do not know, that cannot happen that all students performed bad in midterm. That cannot happen. This was an exam that was announced 3 weeks in advance, and this was also an exam for which you were already half prepared because half of the syllabus was the same for which you took your first exam. So I do not know. Let me do the grading. I think it would be too early for me to decide anything. And if it's really too bad, it depends. I mean, I think you still have one chance left. You still have your final exam.
Ma'am, it's like the paper wasn't that. Ma'am, it's like the material doesn't match at times with the statements that are given in the MCQs. It's not enough to study through slides, and I don't know if it's worth like studying when the statements are so complicated. It's like I'll give you an example. There was a statement that policies help something like this, that policies are important for politicians, public, or some third option. But ma'am, in the slides it was given that policies are made by politicians for the पब्लिक इन यूएफओ. तो मैम इसमें इम्पोर्टेंस कैसे पता लग रही है? इम्पोर्टेंट तो वो दोनों के लिए होते हैं कि पॉलिसीज बनेगी तो पब्लिक फॉलो करेगी.
There are two things, Fatima.
And
First thing is that I told students multiple times that it's not sufficient to prepare only from PowerPoint slides because slides are
मैम
only.
नोट्स से भी पढ़ते हैं तो नोट्स में भी इतना डिटेल नहीं होता. दोनों से अगर पढ़ रही.
Question that you are asking, that question was related to that I have forgotten myself. That question was something like that policy agenda
Policy agenda and how like it helps.
Policy agenda is something that is focused by only politicians, or there were two other options. I have forgotten myself. So politicians focus only on policy agenda. Public focuses on public agenda, and media focuses on media agenda. I mean, there was only one correct answer and you had to find it. However, give me some time. We will talk more about it. I was asking you questions in the beginning of the class, any concerns about them, and nobody spoke up. And now, towards the end of the class, you're coming with concerns, but that's okay. Let me do the grading and then we'll see where we are, okay? Like I said,
Okay.
it would be too early for me to decide anything. Let me do the grading and let me see what is coming out of it.
All right, ma'am.
All right, thank you and goodbye.
Okay.
I'll see
Goodbye.
you. I'll see you on Wednesday.